Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a close look at something really significant for Canada's future, a more digital way of doing things. And for you listening in the public service, this isn't just, gazing into a crystal ball. It's really about the nuts and bolts of how we can work smarter, maybe have a bigger impact, and ultimately deliver better services to Canadians.
Absolutely. We've been looking through some compelling ideas, things that could really transform how Canada operates, boosting efficiency, sure, but also the well-being of, well, everyone who lives here. Think of it like exploring some key upgrades to Canada's operating system, and your work as public servants is pretty central to making those upgrades happen.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. Our sources are pointing to three key digital shifts, things that could be genuine game changers. First, revamping online tax filing. Second, creating national healthcare records. And third, moving towards online voting.
Right.
Now, these aren't just tech trends, are they? They seem like practical solutions. Solutions with the potential to make a real difference in daily life and, by extension, the work you do.
Yeah, and what's fascinating is how these three areas kind of connect. Each one tackles a pretty significant hurdle for Canadians right now and presents a chance to leap ahead, in terms of convenience and effectiveness. When you look at the bigger picture, it's about building a digital foundation that actually works for the people it's supposed to serve.
Okay, let's dive into the first one then, something we all deal with. Taxes. For a lot of Canadians, filing taxes feels like this yearly marathon, right? It's time-consuming, sometimes confusing, and sadly, for some of our most vulnerable folks, it can actually be a barrier to getting benefits they really deserve.
That's such an important point. The current complexity can inadvertently create obstacles, especially for people with lower incomes or maybe less access to support. And this is where the example of Estonia really sparks the imagination. Imagine filing your taxes in, well, roughly the time it takes to brew a coffee. 5 minutes, almost entirely online.
Seriously, 5 minutes? That sounds almost unbelievable for many of us. And the idea isn't some massive overhaul of the CRA, is it? The info's mostly there already. The proposal is more like sending Canadians a pre-filled estimate, clearly showing the calculations, with a simple way to ask for a review if something looks off.
Exactly. And what's really compelling about this, especially thinking about the public service angle, is the potential for greater equity. If we can streamline getting benefits to those who are eligible, we're directly contributing to a more just, more supportive society. That aligns perfectly with, the core values of public service.
Right.
Now, the source does mention, and it's fair to point out, that this kind of efficiency, well, it might change things for some accountants.
Okay, yeah, that's a consideration. Now let's switch gears. Another big one, healthcare. Think about this scenario. You need medical help outside your home province. Getting your complete medical history can sometimes feel like putting together a jigsaw puzzle with half the pieces missing.
It really can. The fact that healthcare records are largely siloed within provinces, it creates real inefficiencies. And it can even pose risks for citizens. So the idea of a federal system for national healthcare records, it offers a really interesting potential solution. Instead of waiting and hoping for 10 separate provincial systems to somehow magically connect seamlessly.
Which could take forever.
Exactly. A unified approach could be much more effective and, potentially safer for everyone.
Picture the upside for Canadians, right? Their essential medical info available securely wherever they are in the country. And for those of you in public service working in health fields, think about the streamlined access. Access to the information you need, always respecting privacy, of course, but to better serve citizens.
Yeah, and it's vital to acknowledge the jurisdictional reality here. Healthcare is mainly a provincial responsibility. We know that. But the source makes a strong argument, I think, that a federal framework could provide that crucial layer, that layer of efficiency and safety, maybe without overstepping. It's about finding a collaborative way that puts the citizen first.
Okay, third point, voting. We just had a federal election, and the source throws out some pretty big numbers. We're talking around $600 million spent, and about 250,000 people involved, all just to cast ballots in person.
Wow, that's huge.
And that doesn't even count the indirect stuff, like people taking time off work or the environmental footprint.
Yeah, those are really significant costs, both money and human effort. When you add in those less direct costs, the case for seriously looking at alternatives like online voting becomes quite persuasive. And the source then asks a pretty blunt question. Why the hesitation? Why not online voting in Canada by, say, 2025?
It's a fair question, especially when you think about the potential benefits, more people participating, maybe greater convenience for everyone, especially folks with mobility issues or just really demanding schedules. These are all things that could lead to a stronger democracy, something I know is important to many of you listening.
And this naturally leads us into some of the potential roadblocks, the barriers. The source kind of floats the idea of a Canadian bureaucracy that might be, well, a bit too cautious. It uses this memorable analogy, doesn't it? A hockey team with 6 goalies.
Six goalies,
Right.
right, meaning maybe too focused on defense, not enough on scoring.
Sort of.
Yeah.
The underlying point is that sometimes, yeah, an overabundance of caution can actually hold back progress and innovation.
And they don't shy away from mentioning the Phoenix pay system either. A stark reminder, I think, for many in public service of what can happen when maybe risk aversion meets a lack of clear accountability on complex projects.
Yeah, that's definitely a shadow that hangs over these kinds of discussions. The fear of cyber attacks is another big one that always comes up with digital systems. But the source points out, look, we're already living in a world with widespread social media. Data breaches happen, sadly, across banks, hospitals, you name it. This shouldn't be a reason to just stop everything. It should be a strong motivator to invest in really robust security. We need to learn to navigate this effectively.
Exactly. It's about not letting fear paralyze us from exploring solutions that could really improve lives. The source also highlights this kind of gap, doesn't it, between Canada's talk about being a leading nation and maybe
Mhm.
the perceived slowness in actually adopting these digital innovations.
There's a real call to action there,
Yeah.
to move beyond just, saying we're innovative and to actually implement tangible changes,
Yeah.
changes that directly benefit citizens. And this is where the expertise, the dedication within the public service is absolutely crucial. You folks are the ones who can help turn these possibilities into realities on the ground.
So, okay, there are valid points to consider. Potential shifts in jobs, like accountants, as you mentioned, and the critical, absolute critical need for strong data security. That's non-negotiable. But the overall message seems to be that the potential gains for Canadians in their well-being, their productivity, make these digital steps worth pursuing, thoughtfully, strategically.
Absolutely. And the source really emphasizes making sure all Canadians have the digital skills they need, digital literacy, and ensuring that the systems we build are transparent, auditable. You have to earn and maintain public trust around data privacy. Public servants have such a vital role here, both in fostering that literacy and ensuring systems are built right, with those principles embedded.
Ultimately, the source sounds pretty confident in Canada's ability to tackle these challenges. It's about matching our words or ambitious goals with decisive action and holding our leaders accountable. And for you, listening in public service, that message must really resonate.
Precisely. As public servants, you are right there on the front lines, serving Canadians every day. These digital priorities, tax, health, voting, they represent an opportunity to do that job more effectively, more efficiently, and to make an even greater positive impact on the people you serve.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, we've explored the potential of online tax filing, maybe making benefits access smoother, the promise of national healthcare records for more seamless, safer care across the country, and the possibilities of online voting for a more accessible, maybe more cost-effective democracy. These aren't just abstract ideas. They feel like real opportunities to build a better Canada, one that works more effectively for everyone.
Yeah, and as you continue your work, maybe consider how these underlying principles we talked about, principles like embracing calculated risk, demanding action, always prioritizing citizen well-being, how those can inform your own roles day to day. How can you, in your work, contribute to this digital future and help Canada really step up in serving its people? That's maybe the key thought to take away from this.